So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the fire damage property. We're going to be talking about what we learned, and for those of you guys that are just seeing this video for the very first time, we have another video in the link below that you guys can actually see when we first bought the property, what it looked like, so you guys can follow along the journey. And we are here now at the fire damage property 6 months later. It's still not completed. There's a lot of things that I want to point out and help you guys understand. So I'm going to be explaining the things that I've learned, the mistakes that I've made, so you guys don't make those same mistakes. You know, we can learn from our experiences, but the most valuable thing is learning from the experiences of others, right? And in this situation, we want to help you guys not make the same mistakes that I made. Let's start off with the very first one, right? Going with the least expensive contractor, right? On paper, it looked like it was going to be the best deal for me to go with that particular bid, but it turned out to be the most expensive one. Why is that? Because it's taken months to complete a simple job that should have been completed in the matter of a few days, right? So what happens is when we're remodeling these properties, we're typically most of the time using private money, private capital, or hard money. And what happens is we have to pay on a monthly basis, typically a monthly interest, as we're completing the job. We like to complete the majority of our renovations within 3 to 4 months. So whenever you have a hiccup like mine, where the contractor took several months and has actually not even completed yet, he's supposed to complete the job by tomorrow, you're gonna have to be paying thousands of dollars in interest for the time that you are holding the property, right? You got holding costs, you're paying for taxes, you're paying for utilities typically. So there's a lot of expenses that go into holding. So that's the first one, is contractors. Make sure you do your due diligence and not just go with the least expensive, and go typically with the middle of the range. One of the things that I wanted to let you guys know when you're dealing with contractors is make sure that you guys have a contract where you guys have maybe obviously an agreement, not only just on the contract, but on the form of payment, right? One of the biggest mistakes that I make, newbie investors or people that are buying their first flip, their first rental, is they get into trouble because you're paying the contractor up front, right? If you're doing windows, if you're doing foundation, whatever the case may be, never pay the contractor 100%, because that is where you're gonna have a huge risk, because there's really no reason why that contractor wants to come back and finish your job. You already paid him the money. He's probably already on vacation, right? And I'm not saying that happens all the time. I'm just saying that you wanna keep that in mind. Have a contract and have an agreement on form of payments. Maybe you agree to, he's gonna finish the job and you're gonna give him 4 payments. Maybe you're gonna give him a small payment as he's starting the job. Maybe you're gonna give him another payment as you know, he's he's progressed 25%. Maybe when he's 50%, you give him 50% payment, and so forth. So make sure you have a contract. Make sure that you have an agreement where you're gonna give them several payments and not just give them one lump sum payment. A lot of my contractors, I have a relationship where I don't pay them until they complete the job, where I come and inspect it 100%, and if there's something that's not completed, they come and fix it, because they want to get that paycheck and they want to make sure that I'm not holding off, and I want to make sure that they complete it. So that's a very good relationship that I have with my contractors. Some contractors want you to pay them 50% or 25%, whatever the case may be. That's an agreement that you have to make. But what happened to me in my experience dealing with one particular contractor at this property is not just because it's a fire damage property. It could happen at any one of your projects that you're, a rental project or a remodel, a flip, whatever the case may be. Keep in mind to get good referrals and not always just go with the lowest bid, because the lowest bid might not be the best bid, because it's going to cost you money, as it is costing me, because it's taking a lot longer. So get referrals, have a contract, have a good agreement, and if you can, it's always good to go out and look at their project, right? If you're hiring a painter, for example, it may be a good idea to go out there and walk a property that he's painting. Can you show me a property that you're painting right now or that you recently painted? Look at pictures if you can, and get referrals. So those are some of the quick tips that I have as far as contractors. Another tip that I have for you guys are windows, right? At the moment that I'm recording this video, March 2022, as you guys know, there's a shortage of supplies, there's a backlog, there's so many issues that we are dealing with as investors, and one of the biggest is windows, right? If you're doing a heavy remodel, or especially a fire damaged property, I encourage you to just buy windows at Lowe's or Home Depot that are available, that you can just go right now and pick them up and buy standard size windows. That's gonna save you a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money. These windows, we custom ordered, and it took several months to get them in stock or get them installed. So if you're already doing a full renovation, what you can do is just buy standard size windows. The person that's going to install them makes it very easy to make sure they fit. You may have to put a little bit of more brick or fill them in with siding, whatever the case may be, but that's going to save you a lot of time rather than playing the guessing game, not knowing if the windows are going to come in 3 months, 4 months, or I've heard even crazy stories as far as 5 months. So that's going to save you time and money instead of buying custom windows. Custom windows are typically a little bit more expensive, and they're going to take a lot more time, and they're going to delay your project. So if you have the ability, just go and find standard size windows, put them in there, and that's going to save you a lot of time and money. For a lot of you guys that have been following my video, you guys saw the first initial video of this particular property, and you guys can see that it is a little bit different. What is one of the major things that we changed about this property is the pitch of the roof, right? One of my friends recommended and say, hey, you're gonna have to reframe the structure of the roof. So if you're gonna do that, you might as well raise the pitch and make it a lot higher, and that's exactly what we do. You guys can see that it looks like a completely different property. There's a lot more room inside. We could even probably create and add another room because there's so much room whenever you change the pitch. So I encourage you, if you're gonna be doing that already, it's only gonna cost you a little bit more to do that. It's gonna cost you a little bit more in roofing cost, installation. It's gonna cost you a little bit more maybe on lumber, but it's gonna make the world of difference, as you guys can see. So I encourage you, if you're gonna go through a heavy remodel of fire damage, or you gotta replace the entire structure of the roof, go ahead and change the pitch. It'll make you a lot more money, obviously, when you sell it as well. And there's a high value item for just spending a little bit more money. So I encourage you guys to do that. One of the things that I've also learned is that initially when you walk a fire damaged property, even though a particular area looks like that just particular area was affected, you have to account for you're having to redo typically a lot more of the framing, or almost all of the framing. That's exactly what happened at this property. When I first walked it looked like most of the damage occurred in one of the bedrooms, maybe close to the living room and the hallway. And I said, you know what, this is what I'm gonna have to replace. And I didn't really think about having to replace the entire roof structure and a lot of the room structure. So whenever you're doing that, keep in mind that you may have to do a lot more work than you initially think, and you want to make sure that you account for when you're doing your rehab budget. And it's always better to overestimate than underestimate, because when you underestimate, you can put yourself in a bad situation, especially if you're limited on funds. If you have a limited line of credit, you may not be able to complete your job, or you may be getting really stressed out. You're not able to sleep at night because you can't finish the job. So it's always better to overestimate than to underestimate. Another tip that I have for you guys when you're looking at a fire damaged property, and one of the most overlooked things is holding costs. The longer you hold a property, the more liability and the more it costs us as investors. From the day that you sign the final closing docs, when the property is funded, you have costs associated from that day. Number one, you're gonna start getting interest costs if you're using a loan, whether it's a bank loan, whether it's a private money loan, or whether it's a hard money loan, you're gonna have interest. Number two, you're gonna have property taxes. Property taxes, you're gonna have to come into account from day one. Now, the majority of the renovations that we typically do, we turn around within 60 to 90 days. And in this particular property, as you can see, it's taking probably gonna be about 8 months when it's all said and done. So you have to account that you're gonna be paying interest a lot longer, you're gonna pay property taxes a lot longer, and you're gonna have to pay utilities. As you guys can see on this property, we have a temporary pole that we put over there where the contractors hook up all their stuff so they can finish their job, so they can hook up their saws, their drills, or whatever the case may be. So you have to know that you're gonna pay interest, you're gonna have to pay property taxes, and you're gonna have to pay utilities. So keep in mind when you're doing this and you're looking at your budget and you're looking at all your costs, keep that in mind, that the numbers have to be a lot better when you're looking at a fire damage property versus a just regular rehab, because it's going to take you a lot more time, a lot more interest, a lot more property taxes you're going to have to pay. You're going to have to pay utilities for a lot longer, maybe 3 to 4 months on a regular one, but you're going to have to pay on a fire damage maybe 6, 8, 9, or 10 months. So quick tip for you, I hope that helped. All right. So if you bought a fire damage house, or you're looking at a fire damage house, one of the things that you also have to consider is that there's going to be a lot more risk, because there's going to be a lot more time that some of these components, materials are exposed. So if you're buying a fire damaged property in a not so great area, there's a high probability that somebody is looking around the corner trying to find their opportunity to possibly steal material, steal copper, steal electrical, steal insulation, sheetrock, whatever the case may be. You have to watch your property, and the property typically could be exposed a little bit longer than normal rehab, right? In normal rehab, you may go in there, you're not even changing the structure, you might not even be changing the roof. You may just go in there and change some cosmetics, change out the floor. But whenever you're doing a fire damaged property, more than likely you're gonna have to rewire the house, do all new plumbing, and all new, gas lines, whatever the case may be. So a lot more of those materials are going to be exposed a lot longer, and it's going to be just a lot higher risk. So you have to consider that. And if you're buying a fire damaged property, just kind of be aware of those things and be aware of where you're buying that property. If it's not in if it's not in an area where it's just the best area, or there's a high crime rate, you could be left with thousands of dollars of stolen materials. We hear stories from other investors that have gotten all their wiring stolen, all their materials stolen. So just keep that in mind whenever you are doing one of these fire damaged properties. Do I recommend for you to buy a fire damaged house? That's one of the common questions that I get. Should I buy a fire damaged house? Well, it depends, right? In this particular property, even though it's taken us the longest to renovate, that we've had a lot of learning experiences and pain by dealing with different contractors or whatnot, it's still going to be very, very profitable for us. So if you're looking at a fire damaged property, it all comes down to the numbers. You got to be able to buy that property at a good enough discount where you're going to minimize your risk, right? Even though that it's taken us the longest, even though that one of the contractors almost ran off and didn't complete the job, we're still going to do extremely well and probably going to be at the top of the properties if we wanted to flip it as far as profit. So if you like the video, if you got a lot of value, please make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment. I'd like to hear your story. If you're doing a renovation that maybe is a fire damage or you're looking at a fire damage property, do you have a question? Do you have a comment? Maybe it's something that you'd like to share that you've experienced or mistakes that you've made that we can all learn from. So make sure you put it in the comments. And thank you for following me along the journey. I'm going to be giving you guys updates on not just this property, but several other properties. We just signed a contract on another property today, and we're finishing up another property in Sherman here in the next few months. So follow along the journey, and hopefully you guys can learn from our mistakes and be a very successful real estate investor, whether you want to be a passive investor or you want to be an active investor. We'll see you guys on the next video.